limitless India. And I compliment you for the confidence you have demonstrated in both the title and the topic of today, where you would wish to discuss the India that you would all like to see in 2030, our own role in global trade, how India will emerge as a manufacturing hub. And therefore, it was with great pleasure that I accepted this invitation. We are all coming out of probably the worst health crisis in 100 years. I do hope we are coming out of it and we don't see any new variants or new waves. The world is currently seeing conflict because the US is pretty much far away from the theater. We are sitting right in the neighborhood of conflict areas. And all of this has caused a lot of uncertainty in the world. It has caused a lot of confusion about the future, a lot of concern about where the world is headed. It is amongst these challenging times and situations that all of us have to chart out our national interest, our national priorities, how we want to shape the future of our country, how we see India coming out from the dark shadows of several years of missed opportunities and truly emerge as a global superpower. And it is in this context that over the last 7 or 8 years, we have been working towards a pathway which will make India a global manufacturing hub and a significant player in global trade. When we came into government many years ago, India had been categorized a fragile 5 economy, low foreign exchange reserves, very low confidence, both in India and internationally, crumbling banking system, very great degree of difficulties in running your businesses. I cannot say that everything was bad. There were good things happening also. But at the aggregate, when you balanced everything, I think people were quite disenchanted with the way the nation was being run. Large corruption scandals surfacing, our own stature in international bodies diminishing, growth having fallen very significantly, and very low traction for investments in the country. Over the last few years, Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi focuses his attention on structural improvements. He worked towards developing modern day technologically enabled systems of taxation, set about getting the banking system in order, focused on ease of doing business, and you saw the remarkable improvement in our ranking in that score. Promoted the Make in India concept so that Indian manufacturing gets a leg up. Put in serious effort to help our startup ecosystem to really become world-class and contribute to the nation's development and make a place for itself at the international level. Ensured that he got a better quality of life for the millions who are deprived of basic amenities. So it is under his charge that we saw every household get a bank account. so that financial inclusion reached the masses. Sadly, for nearly 65, 67 years after independence, more than half the country's population didn't have a toilet. He ensured by building 120 million toilets that every home should have a toilet. There were millions of children, millions of families deprived of a basic amenity like power, electricity. He ensured electricity reached the nook and corner of the country and every child got electricity in his home. We are currently working on a program to ensure that every home gets digital connectivity, taking it to the remotest villages and panchayats all across the country. We are working that every home should get water from a tap, the Jal Jeevan Mission, which will ensure Nal Se Jal, good quality, clean drinking water, clean water for every home. Cooking gas was a luxury for the middle class and the rich. He ensured that 100 million families got clean cooking gas, saving our mothers and sisters from, I am told, 400 cigarettes into their body every day that they sat down to cook on the traditional medium. He provided free healthcare facility for 500 million people, the world's largest free healthcare program, something which even America failed to implement. Through the COVID period, we have been significantly working towards enhancing our health infrastructure. And I think the whole world today recognizes that India managed its COVID situation. Everybody was worried with the levels of low incomes, very poor traditional health infrastructure. Everybody was worried what will happen. But Prime Minister Modi focused on lives. At times, he even let the economy suffer, but wanted to make sure that every life saved is important. And over the last 2 years, we have seen India emerging as a role model for managing COVID and in our implementation of the vaccine program. We probably have amongst the highest vaccination rates amongst adults anywhere in the world today, both first dose and second dose. We ran a $50 billion program. It's continuing until September this year to provide free food grains to 800 million Indians, in addition to the food grain that they were already getting as a part of our food security. So in a way, we've doubled the food grain being given to every individual to ensure that not a single person dies of starvation or not a single family sleeps hungry at night. I'm sharing all this with you because you cannot have growth, you cannot have prosperity until the entire country rises with you, until you care for the downtrodden, the marginalized sections of society, and they can play a role in the growth of the economy. After all, what is demographic dividend? It emerges from the fact that you have 1 billion plus people. But unless those billion plus have a decent quality of life, they have work, they have purchasing power, they can become consumers of goods and services, they will not be able to contribute to a growing economy. And therefore, all of these put together is the ecosystem with a one nation, one tax, the goods and services tax, with focus on minimum government, maximum governance, so that we start believing in our people and we have a less intimidating tax regime, simplified assessment procedures. All of these put together have created the enabling environment. Unfortunately, COVID has set us back by a couple of years, but you can see the green shoots of manufacturing expanding rapidly in India. If we really want to prosper, while services has a great role to play, I think we'll have to get a lot of jobs and a lot of work opportunities coming out of manufacturing, particularly from our small and medium industry. We'll have to have exports as a major engine of growth. And you'll be delighted to know that for the first time in India's history, we've crossed $400 billion as exports in the day gone by yesterday, April to March 22. You might have read that we've had the highest ever GST collection in a month, reported in March. The collections of this month, March 31st, as of March 31st. So all in all, we are working towards the structural improvements and change, both to make us a significant player in the global theater in the years to come, as well as promoting manufacturing in a big way. We are focused also on creating infrastructure so that logistics costs can become more reasonable, more affordable, more competitive. We have provided nearly $40 billion of support over the next 5-6 years through our production-linked incentive schemes in earlier 14 sectors, and the 15 semiconductors got added after that. Collectively hoping to create a manufacturing ecosystem around which MSMEs and the rest of the business and utilities and all can prosper. And we are hoping to manufacture at global scale, hoping to become globally competitive. We are moving out of the mindset of subsidies into a mindset of enablement and empowerment, so that government acts more like a facilitator and not an intruder into your business. And all of this, friends, we believe is good for the country. The countrymen also believe that it is good for their future. And very recently, we had elections in several states. We had governments in 4 states. We've repeated all 4 governments, all of them with an absolute majority. And the largest Indian state, Uttar Pradesh, has seen a chief minister complete 5 years in office and then get re-elected for a second time, for the first time since independence. I'm only sharing this with you because he has shown to the rest of the world that how a government in the state working in tandem and aligned to the central policies, which we often call a double engine government, both center and state working in tandem for the welfare of their people, can truly transform the lives of the people. How infrastructure is developed, how law and order has been brought under control, how industry is finally coming to Uttar Pradesh, how people are seeing prosperity, corruption-free governance after many, many decades in that state. And to my mind, the next 10 years are going to be the defining period of India's economic history. I expect to see good growth levels. I expect to see our international engagement growing. This year, both in goods and services, we'll have a historical record. Never before have we touched a $250 billion or thereabouts. Final figure is not yet out. In services, and $400 billion in goods, which is about $650 billion of export of goods and services, which is near about 25% of our GDP. And we hope to sustain this momentum, grow our exports, both in goods and services, and hopefully become a significant player, a partner of transparent, rules-based economies, developed world, who are looking for trusted stakeholders, trusted partners for resilient supply chains. India offers that to the world. And I can assure you, friends, that as you complete your studies in Columbia, as some of you come into India, come back to India to work, as some of you may choose to work in other parts of the world, you will all be proud of the achievements that your nation is doing, that your people are doing, that your families are doing or working for back home. To our friends from other countries who may have also joined this call, I would like to invite you to participate in the great story that is unfolding in India and invite you to do business, invite you to work with India, with Indian companies in India, in our ecosystem. And I can assure you, there is no better place in the world, no better or larger market available anywhere in the world. A billion plus Indians aspiring for a better quality of life is better than what you can get anywhere else in the world. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful remarks. We have some questions which we've got from some students, which we'd like to go ahead with. Sir, in response to COVID, the economic response of the government was perhaps much more calibrated than that of more developed economies. With the benefit of hindsight, how do you think that has played out? And going ahead in a post-COVID world, how do you see India emerging not just as a global manufacturing destination, but also a global investment destination of choice?
Well, very clearly, we balanced lives and livelihoods. But at the same time, we did not let fiscal prudence go completely haywire. Mm-hmm. And today we are seeing those economies which just gave handouts and distributed money are not finding their economies getting back into action. That's unsustainable. Whereas India's own programs, the Atmanirbhar Bharat package and various programs to support our small businesses, specific sectoral interventions, to help our exporters, to ensure that common man gets his adequate necessities and keeps his lifestyle normal, has actually helped us to revive faster, come back into the game much faster. And I can say, even in hindsight, if we, God forbid, the same thing was to happen again, I think India was on the right path and we would stay steadfast in what we have done over the last 2 years. It was right for the country. And we believe that we are now well set to, as per the steps we have taken to convert this crisis into an opportunity, we are well on track to take our country to higher levels of prosperity.
Sir, thank you for your insights. Moving on to, sir, advice that you would have for business school students and maybe personal anecdotes that you can share from when you were 20 something and inflection points that you had in your career. What do you think is the best or habits, sir, that have really sailed you to deliver and contribute so greatly in public life?
Well, I started working as an entrepreneur, really. Set up a small scale unit about 40 years ago. I was all of 17 when I first started working on it, and maybe 18, 19 when I really got cracking into implementing it. Even as I was a student of first BCom and then chartered accountancy and law. Faced a lot of trials and tribulations, right up to labor trouble, understanding how to deal with government officials, with boiler inspectors. Very often I remember all my times and they help me in my work. As Industry and Commerce Minister, I recall all the difficulties I faced while I was starting a business. Faced all the difficulties I faced as an exporter of goods that I was doing at that time. I remember the first time I came to a government office in Delhi was to Udyog Bhavan, where my own office is situated today, to meet a boiler inspector, which today reports to me. My first visit to Delhi when I started my business. I won't even tell you what I had to do. I feel ashamed about this situation 40 years ago. But we are now trying to set all of these right. We are trying to use technology and transparency as our mantras. We are recognizing the hard work that all our young boys and girls, our startups, our entrepreneurs, our small shopkeepers, our MSME stakeholders are doing to try and make life easier for them, to try and reduce the burden of compliances on them, to decriminalize the laws. And each one of my old experiences of the past. For example, I recall once a weights and measures officer, how he came and harassed the hell out of me. And I didn't realize that weights and measures, even if you are a gram or 2 gram or 5 gram off, which you don't have any control of, you buy it from the market, you get it calibrated from the authorized labs. But if somebody wants to pick holes, they can always pick hole on anything. And then you pay the price for it. I don't need to elaborate that. But now, by God's grace, that department has come under me. I'm trying to set things right with a lot of resistance. I tell you, it's not easy. I don't know if you've ever seen the old 30, 40-year-old back. There was that serial Yes Minister, and then Yes Prime Minister. You guys are very young. You may not know it. But I would urge you to look it up either on Netflix or wherever, Amazon, wherever it's available. It's a lesson in how British government and bureaucracy used to run and what legacy they left behind for us in India. In fact, I'd seen it 30 years, 40 years ago during COVID, when you were at home and you had some time to spare. I actually ran through all of those episodes again to refurbish my memory on what not to do as a minister.
So I think as a minister, you must have had to encounter quite a few Sir Humphreys along your course. But with that, I understand you're on a tight schedule. We still do have a few more questions from the audience. Would you like to take a couple more? Would you have time for that, sir?
Sure.
Thank you. Sir, in the wake of the global realignment of supply chains and the emerging geopolitical situation, schemes in the past like Make in India and the PLI scheme have been very successful in incentivizing manufacturing. What do you think are the next steps in this field, particularly in the context of you setting the target of $1 trillion in export each for goods and services in the coming years?
You know that old Shah Rukh Khan movie in which he says कि जब किसी चीज की बहुत चाहत होती है तो पूरी कायनात भी तुम्हारा समर्थन करती है उसको अचीव करने के लिए. When you really desire something with passion, the whole universe conspires to help you achieve it. I strongly believe that one has to have overarching and targets which seem unachievable. You may fail at times, but unless you aspire to reach the moon, you're never going to land on the moon. And I don't think when it was decided in America that in 10 years they're going to land in the moon, at that point of time, they had no real roadmap or clarity how it will happen or whether it can happen. But they did it. When we set out on $400 billion export target this year, very few people really believed in us. But the Prime Minister had the courage of conviction that we can do it. India has the ability to do it. And we did it. We've exceeded it, in fact, very well. So I personally think that a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking, self-confidence, engaging with all the stakeholders. A lot of this is to do with your dialogue, which is why I readily agreed to talk to you. As much as we engage with bright minds, with people who can help you with ideas, who can help you know the difficulties, help tell you what the problems are which you need to set right and resolve. So stakeholder consultation was a very, very important part of my work in the last 8 years. Global opportunities are right there staring us in the face. Countries want to engage with India. They look upon us as a trusted partner. And therefore, friends, my own sense is India is an attractive place. But if we don't catch that opportunity today, we'll only have ourselves to blame. But if we do work hard, if we do work sincerely, if we put in our best foot forward, sky is the limit for the immense potential in India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think as students in business school, we're all budding entrepreneurs. India saw, I think, 41 unicorns come up in 2021 and a lot more rolling on since then. It's really been a place where it's perhaps an ecosystem where you have startups booming. As students who would want to perhaps start something in India or see the Indian market as ripe to set up a startup, what advice would you have for us? Particularly in terms of international students, what resources can they avail from the government and otherwise?
Government has many schemes for startups, which of course are in public domain. I won't get into that detail. But I have certainly one piece of advice. If you want to be successful in business, try to keep the government out of your business. Mm-hmm. Don't depend on government clutches, government subsidies, and what will the government do for me? Every one of those startups out there, which has become a unicorn, would largely have done it on the strength of their own grit, determination, their own technological ideas. Well, of course, government has supported. So many of those unicorns have taken money from the government seed capital fund, for example, or the mentorship program, or the incubation hub. They have benefited from all of that. And those are available to all without any preferences. Everybody who desires to take the benefits of all the various government schemes, we would welcome that. But my own experience is that it'll be your ideas, your innovative way of working, your skill sets, which will help you move away from the security of a job to the boldness of an entrepreneur, the ability of an entrepreneur to be willing to fail. Unless you fail, you'll never succeed in life. And I think look at the success stories in education and healthcare and fintech, agri-tech. We've done some fantastic work in India. Our UPI system, on the back of which many of our fintechs are working, is the best in the world. And I'm proudly saying that. No country in the world has such a seamless payment mechanism, such a low-cost mechanism, real-time, secure, and efficient. So lots can be done. I would welcome all of you to look at India. It's a big marketplace. A good idea gets so many opportunities here. But God forbid your idea doesn't work. There's always a tomorrow. The population isn't going away anywhere. Your customers aren't going away anywhere. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for your insightful comments, sir. I'm sure this has been very useful and helpful to all of us students at Columbia. We really have learned from your interaction in 2016 now, and we really look forward to having you here in campus next year at the India Business Conference, sir.
Thank you, and God bless all of you, and all the very best. I hope each one of you is successful in your life and you do very, very well. Good luck. God bless.
Thank you, sir, for taking out the time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.